You got to find it. If you can't find it, you send them to me. He'll have a varicocele. I've seen it. It's great. Because you guys work out the diet, the stress, the lifestyle. You got them all they're like in perfect shape, and I find a varicocele. So I got to publish that because it's wild. Motility. I think motility is a marker. So it's the one you want to be normal. It matters most to fertility, right? Because if they're all dead, they're not going to fertilize. But a small number of moving sperm can do the job. So that's important. It's a more sensitive indicator of insults to the body than the count. So think of this as low motility only, which is 26% of semen analyses. What's he doing wrong recently? What's he smoking? Did he have a fever? Was he in a hot tub? Something that may have been temporary. And if it's a longer, more durable hit or a more severe hit, the count will fall. So think of motility as the easiest barometer of health, and count as the barometer of something long-term that's going on. Or genetic, so long-term is genetic too. It responds more rapidly to correction, more variable, and it's the same thing that affects count, but at less of a dose. So it's a dose-dependent thing. So I look at the volume and I look at the motility. And then I spend my time figuring out what they're doing. And they can also have antisperm antibodies or genetic. I found a guy with a genetically low motility last week. So 1 in 50,000. I get about 2 a year. Nothing to explain it. The motility is under 10%, which is really hard to do consistently. And I found he has a ciliary defect. There's 300 genes that control it, and I can't do anything about it. It's genetic. So he's going to need IVF. Morphology, forget about it. Here it is, actuarial analysis of sperm. It's said to reflect the fertilizability of sperm with IVF. That's why it was designed. It was read. IVF patients had a semen analysis. They put the slide aside. This is Kruger in Africa. And then they did IVF. They looked at the results and found that if the population of sperm has a morphology below 14% normal by very strict criteria, again, ordering the universe, then they wouldn't fertilize well. Now that's 4% 30 years later. Why? Because here's morphology. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Everyone's reading them so strictly, nothing's normal anymore. So it's all shifting to the left, and now it's unreadable. When I was a professor at UCSF, I took a slide from a patient with a morphology of 6% in my lab, and my technician was trained annually in this because it's really hard to do. It's much harder than a semen analysis. And I sent it to 6 labs, 6 IVF groups over a year. The same slide came back. And it was bell curve 6, 0 to 20. No one read 6. And I said, it's not very good. So the question is, what does it mean? So it has very little to do with the payload. So the shape of the sperm has very little to do with the genetics, miscarriages, funny-looking kids, very little to do with that, okay? To me, it reflects stress. What's going on with the guy? Because the most common pattern is a stress pattern. And a stress pattern is a head that's a little fatter, a little narrower, and anything can do that. Cigarette smoking, varicocele, heat, a flu, because this basically the system's overheated a little bit and it comes out and it's quite malleable, it's not permanent, etc. So everyone thought it reflected the genetic shape, but it doesn't. It's a lot more complicated than that. However, so this is the curve that he had back then with 4%. Now 4% is normal, and so I don't routinely order this anymore because it doesn't reflect fertilizability. It doesn't correlate to natural pregnancy rates. It doesn't correlate to IUI pregnancy rates. It doesn't really correlate to IVF failure. So Jamie Griffiths published that about 10 years ago. He said, what if we didn't look at morphology and just did IVF regardless of that based on other parameters and ICSI? Because right now, if it's below 4%, you buy ICSI, right? That's because this can fail. You can fail to fertilize. That happened in 1 in 250 cases, which is about the same it would happen if you looked at it, right? So it's not a good indicator of fertilizability the way it's currently done. If you talk to Menkfeldt and Kruger, they'll stick to it. It's really great for us because they're really good at it and they invented it, and they're very strict and they're consistent, but it's not teachable. So the biggest problem is you get 1% on your report. I don't really care about that. I care about the 99. What's in the 99? What do they look like? Do they have two tails? Are they pinheads? So I can remember 2 semen analyses last year that were truly abnormal, and they were genetic. And so if it's syndromic, so the blog is called The Genetics of Headless Sperm, if it's syndromic, meaning every single sperm looks the same in that abnormal group, and they all are, lollipop sperm, double-tailed sperm, and it's all the same, then that is syndromic, and that's real. But that's really unusual, and the lab usually picks it up saying, these sperm look like boom, right? So it's the consistency of it. That's when it matters. But my opinion changed because we published a paper last year putting sperm through microfluidic channels to develop a chip to create to select a better sperm. And it's on the market. Disclosure, I'm a board member, but it's called Zymot Fertility Chip. And now it's based on this science, which is a microfluidics, a nerd from Stanford named Dr. Uktan Demirci did this study, and he put sperm through a confined channel like the cervical path and ran it through and looked at the quality of the sperm before and after you put him through this 1 centimeter path, which is now a chip. And they're much better at this end. But what was more interesting to me was that only normal sperm made it. So sperm shape does matter in the cervical path, because if you look bad, bent neck, large head, you'll never make it. You'll never make it. You can't swim it. It's not, the path is too complicated. The cervical grooves are too complicated. So yeah, it probably matters to getting to the egg, probably matters a lot. But after that, probably not. So what about a normal semen analysis and unexplained infertility? So maybe our guy has unexplained infertility. Well, this is my view of unexplained infertility and the risk of male factor. So male factor on the left, infertility condition on the X, and if you're fertile, there is no male factor, right? If you have unexplained infertility,